So right before we started recording today, my smartwatch actually
Oh,
buzzed.
let me guess. Telling you to stand up.
Close. It was telling me I was like 300 steps short of my daily goal. And it hit me that Henry David Thoreau would probably say that tiny little digital buzz is literally the sound of my soul dying.
I mean, he wouldn't be wrong, according to his own philosophy anyway.
Right. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore Thoreau's classic essay, Walking. And I feel like I need to warn you up front, especially if you're listening right now.
Yeah, brace yourselves for this one.
Seriously,
Okay.
because, if you're the kind of person who actively seeks out information or you love optimizing your morning routine,
Or tracking your steps.
exactly, tracking your steps, this deep dive is going to completely flip the script on you. This text basically argues that your fitness tracker, your 9-to-5 job, and even your intense desire to learn, useful facts are actively destroying your intellect.
It's a radical manifesto, really. It's all about why you need to unplug, wander without any destination, and just embrace your inner wildness to actually understand the world.
Yeah, and before we really get into the weeds, could you set the stage for us? Where is Thoreau coming from here?
Well, it is an intensely provocative piece of writing right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Thoreau uses this essay to draw this massive, uncrossable line in the sand.
Okay.
On one side, you have civil culture, society, the village, all those obligations we share as citizens. And on the other side, you have nature, just absolute unbridled freedom.
And he's clearly picking a side.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
His goal from the very first sentence is to champion nature. He basically wants us to view human beings not just as, members of a highly structured society, but as inhabitants-like, part and parcel of nature itself.
I do want to pause right here just for a second and remind you listening. Thoreau is making a highly ideological, very anti-capitalist argument here against modern civilization and commerce.
Very much so.
And we aren't here to take sides or endorse his view that society is inherently degenerate. Our goal today is simply to unpack the mechanics of his philosophy as it's laid out in the text, so you can weigh it for yourself.
And that is a crucial distinction to make.
Yeah.
Because he is coming out swinging against the very foundations of how we structure our days. And honestly, he doesn't pull any punches.
No, he does not. Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can figure out where Thoreau wants us to end up, we really have to look at the mechanics of how he thinks we should move.
Right, the actual act of walking.
Yeah, because he utterly despises the modern concept of what we would call working out. There's this section where he explicitly mocks people who swing dumbbells for their health inside a closed room.
It's such a funny image.
It is. He says they're completely ignoring the true springs of life bubbling up in far-off pastures.
Yeah, he's attacking the whole commodification of movement. When you treat walking as just a metric, where you put in physical effort and expect a specific, measurable biological payout.
Like closing the rings on your watch?
Exactly. When you do that, you are missing the entire point of the activity. So to counter this, he introduces this concept of sauntering.
Sauntering. It sounds so leisurely.
It does, but he gives it this profound historical weight. He traces the etymology back to the Middle Ages, offering two possible origins.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first comes from idle people roving the country asking for charity. They'd claim they were going à la Sainte Terre, which means to the Holy Land.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So children would see them and say, there goes a Sainte Terre, a holy lander.
A saunterer.
Precisely. And true walkers, in his estimation, are the ones who actually do reach a holy land in their walks. It's a spiritual journey.
Okay, and the second origin?
The second derivation is sans terre, meaning without land or having no particular home.
Like a vagabond.
Kind of, but he interprets this in the highest possible sense. Having no particular home means being equally at home everywhere in the world. So true walking is basically a crusade for him. It's a profound adventure. He actually claims that to take a real walk, you have to be ready to leave your father, mother, wife, and child, pay your debts, make your will, and never return to your old self.
Okay, I have to jump in here because, I love the drama of that imagery. But let me challenge the feasibility of it for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't that just a highly romanticized way to justify wandering aimlessly? Because most people cannot simply abandon their families and ignore their financial responsibilities.
Right. Nobody's doing that on a Tuesday afternoon.
Exactly. Is he literally asking us to run away? Or is he getting at a specific mental state? Because I brought up the treadmill earlier, and Thoreau has this bizarre analogy where he says you must walk like a camel.
The camel analogy, yes.
Yeah. He says the camel is the only beast that ruminates while walking. It makes me wonder if he's targeting the fact that most of us are just moving our legs without moving our minds.
You've hit on the exact core of his critique there.
Mm.
He is primarily talking about a mental state, though he certainly did practice it physically, walking for hours every day.
Right.
But the camel analogy is vital. It addresses your treadmill point perfectly. Most people, he argues, are just engaging in bodily transportation.
Bodily transportation.
Yeah. He says he gets alarmed when he walks a mile into the woods bodily without getting there in spirit.
Yeah.
If you bring your morning occupations, your societal obligations, or your financial stresses into the woods with you in your head, you aren't actually walking.
You're just pacing with anxiety.
Exactly.
Yes.
You haven't left your debts or your family behind in spirit. You are just a localized piece of the village that happens to be temporarily surrounded by trees.
Wow, that's a really great way to put it.
You have to detach completely to actually ruminate and digest the world around you.
Okay, so if sauntering is the cure, what exactly is the disease? Like, why is he so desperate to escape his fellow man and the town?
Because he looks at the very infrastructure of society as literally degenerative.
Degenerative.
Yes. He gives us another etymology lesson, this time with the word village. He points out that it comes from the Latin villa, which is connected to via, meaning a way or a road to carry things, and it shares a root with words like vile and villain.
Wait, really? Village and villain share a root?
According to Thoreau, yes.
Yeah.
Society, to him, is nothing more than this network of thoroughfares for business. And the people who live in these villages are way-worn.
Way-worn.
Right, they're ground down by the constant travel of commerce, just going over them day after day, while they themselves never actually go anywhere or experience real freedom.
He takes it a step further, though, doesn't he? Because he looks at the modern worker and actually questions their moral baseline.
Oh, he's brutal about it.
He talks about mechanics and shopkeepers who stay in their shops all morning and all afternoon just sitting there with crossed legs. And he jokes that they deserve credit for not having all committed suicide long ago.
I know, it's a really dark joke. But it underscores his genuine astonishment at their, what he calls moral insensibility.
Yeah.
He feels the literal mechanics of commerce are draining the vitality out of the human spirit.
And there's this fantastic historical contrast he makes to hammer this home. Do you remember the Napoleon bit?
The 3 o'clock in the morning courage.
Yes. So he brings up Napoleon Bonaparte, who used to praise 3 o'clock in the morning courage, like the bravery to wake up in the dead of night, ready for battle.
Right.
But Thoreau claims that is absolutely nothing compared to the sheer courage it takes to sit cheerfully in an office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That 3 p.m. slump. We all know it so well.
You really do.
In Thoreau's framework, that slump is the physical manifestation of being way-worn. It is your soul realizing it is trapped on the highway of commerce.
So think about that. You listening, the next time you hit that exact 3 p.m. wall, you're sitting there staring at a monitor, just waiting for the day to end.
Just waiting for 5 p.m.
Yeah. Thoreau literally wonders why, around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, there isn't a general explosion heard up and down the street to scatter all these antiquated house-bred notions to the four winds.
Such a vivid picture.
So his prescription for that 3 p.m. despair is to physically get off the highway, leave the roads made for horses and men of business, and find an abandoned path.
Like his old Marlborough Road.
Exactly. A road that's forgotten, overgrown, and leads nowhere but into nature itself.
And that concept, finding a direction that leads nowhere but into nature, that is the real pivot point of the essay. Because if we are abandoning the roads and the village, the obvious question becomes, which direction do we head?
Right, where are we actually going?
For Thoreau, his internal compass always inevitably settles toward the west or the southwest.
And here's where it gets really interesting. He turns this personal preference for his afternoon walks into this massive geographical philosophy.
He really scales it up.
He sets up this stark binary. When we go eastward, he says, we are moving toward history. We're studying works of art and literature, retracing the steps of the human race.
Looking backward.
Exactly. But when we go westward, we are moving into the future, fueled by a spirit of enterprise and adventure.
He even describes the Atlantic Ocean as a Lethean stream.
Lethean?
Yeah, Lethe, in Greek mythology, is the river of forgetfulness in the underworld.
Oh, wow.
So by crossing the Atlantic, humanity can forget the institutions of the old world and start completely fresh in the new world.
And he gets completely obsessed with the sheer scale of the American landscape to prove this point. Like, he quotes a traveler who notes that everything in the New World is outlined on a larger scale.
It's all bigger.
Right. Thoreau boasts that the heavens of America are infinitely higher, the sky is bluer, the moon looks larger, the thunder is louder.
He really leans into it.
He even throws out these botanical statistics.
Yeah.
He points out that the United States has over 140 species of large trees exceeding 30 feet in height, whereas France only has 30.
Which is incredibly specific.
It is. But my question is, why does the number of tree species or the size of the moon actually matter? Like, how does a landscape change the way we think?
Well, he isn't just acting as a botanist, showing off trivia here. He's operating on a profound theory of environmental determinism.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The mechanism is that the sheer physical scale and climate of an environment force the human brain to expand its neurological boundaries to comprehend it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, a grander scale of nature physically produces a grander scale of thought. The physical wildness of the West is meant to create a broader, more comprehensive human intellect.
You can't think small thoughts under big trees.
Exactly. You cannot think small, constrained village thoughts under a massive, untamed forest canopy. He actually asks the reader, else to what end does the world go on, and why was America discovered?
This idea of the physical landscape fundamentally altering our psychology, this brings us to the core thesis of the text. Because Thoreau declares, "The West of which I speak is but another name for the wild, and what I have been preparing to say is that in wildness is the preservation of the world."
It is a definitive, world-shifting statement. In wildness is the preservation of the world.
It gives you chills a little bit.
It really does. He observes that every tree sends its fibers forth in search of the wild. Cities import wildness at any price. From the forest and wilderness come the tonics that actually brace mankind and keep civilization from collapsing inward.
I need to challenge the practicality of this, though, because to prove his point, Thoreau gets a little extreme.
Just a little.
Okay, very extreme. He claims that if he were given the choice between living next to the most beautiful garden ever contrived by human art or a dismal swamp,
The swamp.
he would absolutely choose the swamp. He says he wants his front yard to be an unfathomable, muddy bog full of dull red bushes and quaking sphagnum moss.
It's a bold real estate strategy.
Right, and look, this sounds incredibly romanticized, but it also sounds highly privileged. Is a modern person actually supposed to go stand in a mosquito-infested swamp to find themselves?
Look, it sounds absurd to our ears because we have been deeply conditioned to value manicured lawns, order, and convenience. But he uses the swamp metaphorically to represent the marrow of nature. It's the virgin mold, the deep, decomposing organic matter that fuels new life.
So it's not literally about real estate.
No, to your point about practicality, he's using the swamp as a metric for cultural vitality. He argues that all great civilizations draw their vigor from these untamed, messy sources.
Like what?
Well, he brings up the mythological example of Romulus and Remus.
The founders of Rome.
Right, who were suckled by a she-wolf. He argues the Roman Empire eventually fell because its later children were not suckled by the wolf.
They got too comfortable.
Exactly. They lost that wildness, became overly civilized, and then they were conquered by the children of the northern forests who retained their fairity.
He even maps this cultural vitality onto diet, which I found fascinating. He compares eating stall-fed beef and slaughterhouse pork to the Hottentots and northern Indians who eagerly devour the raw marrow of antelopes and reindeer.
He really loves that marrow metaphor.
He does. He is begging for a wildness whose glance no civilization can endure. But this isn't just about physical survival or what we eat. This applies to the media we consume, right?
Precisely. He applies this raw marrow philosophy directly to literature and art. He finds tame, civilized literature incredibly dull.
Shocking.
Right. English literature, he argues, is essentially tame because it merely reflects the highly structured worlds of Greece and Rome.
Okay.
But truly great works. He points to Hamlet and the Iliad, and the old mythologies possess a wild, uncivilized, free-thinking energy. They weren't learned in pristine schools. They are like wildflowers discovered on the prairies, thriving completely outside the boundaries of human cultivation.
This is where things get really challenging for you listening, because you actively seek out knowledge. You listen to deep dives like this one to gather facts, understand the world, be a well-informed citizen.
Naturally.
But Thoreau is basically standing in his metaphorical swamp, pointing a finger at our modern desire to learn useful facts and telling us we are doing it entirely wrong.
Yeah, he takes a direct shot at the education system of his time.
He specifically mocks a group called the Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge.
He jokes that there is a much greater need for a society for the diffusion of useful ignorance.
Useful ignorance?
Yeah, he compares treating human minds by constantly feeding them so-called useful knowledge to a farmer treating a cow by keeping it locked in the barn and feeding it dry hay all year round.
Just terrible for the cow.
Right. He literally tells the Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge to go to grass, leave the stable, go out into the spring, and eat the raw green crop.
So, to replace this dry hay of endless facts, he introduces a fascinating Spanish concept, grammatica parda, which translates to tawny grammar.
Tawny grammar.
Yeah. But what does tawny grammar actually look like in everyday life?
Think of it as street smarts versus book smarts, but elevated to, like, a cosmic level.
Cosmic street smarts. I like that.
It is described as a kind of nether wit, an instinctual dusky knowledge derived from the leopard.
From the leopard.
Yes. Here is how it applies. Memorizing a biology textbook on how a forest ecosystem functions is what Thoreau calls positive ignorance.
Okay.
You think you know the forest because you've acquired facts, but sitting silently in the woods until you intuitively understand its rhythms, relying on observation and instinct, that is tawny grammar.
Positive ignorance. That is such a potent phrase. The illusion that we know something which actually robs us of the advantage of our actual ignorance.
It is a dangerous conceit. He asks, who is the better person to deal with? The one who knows nothing about a subject and is fully aware that he knows nothing, or the one who really knows a tiny bit about it but confidently thinks he knows it all?
The classic Dunning-Kruger effect, basically.
Essentially, yes. We put on a harness of hoarded facts by reading the newspapers and endlessly scrolling for data. But when we finally saunter out into the great fields of thought, we need to leave that harness behind in the stable.
So the goal isn't to be an encyclopedia.
Not at all. The core philosophy he lands on is that the highest state we can attain is not knowledge, but rather sympathy with intelligence.
A sudden, grand realization of how little we actually know.
Yes, it is a sudden lighting up of the mist by the sun. It's being entirely at peace with the vast, hovering mystery of nature.
That's beautiful.
He argues that we shouldn't want every man, or even every part of a man, to be perfectly cultivated. Just like the earth, a small part of our mind should be tillage, plowed and structured, but the far greater part should be meadow and forest.
We need those swamps.
We desperately need those mental swamps to decay and build the rich, complex soil required for our future thoughts.
It really forces you to run an audit on your own mental real estate. Like, are we spending our lives walking the highway of routine, absorbing dry hay, while intentionally paving over the swamps of our own minds?
Just to become perfectly manicured, highly productive front yards. And to break out of that trap, Thoreau insists we must anchor ourselves in the present moment. He says we should listen for the rooster's crow in the barnyard because it's an expression of the health and soundness of nature.
It's the gospel of the present moment.
Yes, and that deep presence leads to profound revelations. He describes this breathtaking sunset he witnessed one November.
Oh, this part is amazing.
It had been a cold, gray day, but just before setting, the sun hit a clear stratum in the horizon. The softest, brightest golden light fell on the dry grass, the oak leaves, and the meadow. He and his companion felt like the only motes in its beams.
And the beautiful realization he had was that this wasn't a solitary phenomenon. It wasn't a one-time event orchestrated just for him. The sun will set on some retired meadow where no house is visible, with all the lavish glory it bestows on a massive city.
The exact same glory.
Yeah. It will shine its light just to gild the wings of a solitary marsh hawk, or a little meandering brook winding around a decaying stump.
It is a powerful reminder that the wild is always there, performing its quiet miracles, whether we have the time to witness them or not. We just have to be willing to walk out and meet it.
The wild is always there. But, thinking about this now, taking Thoreau's ideas out of the 19th century and applying them to our current reality.
Right.
As we rush toward a future totally dominated by artificial intelligence and perfectly curated algorithms constantly feeding us useful knowledge, are we permanently paving over those mental swamps?
That's a fascinating question.
Right. If artificial intelligence becomes our ultimate, perfectly tamed society, perhaps your human wildness, your capacity for useful ignorance, for tawny grammar, and for wandering without a destination is the only thing that will keep you from becoming completely obsolete.
That is a terrifying and vital thought. If machines master all the useful knowledge, wildness is the only uniquely human trait left.
Exactly. So the next time your smartwatch buzzes to demand more steps, or the next time you step outside and the sun begins to set, ask yourself, is this just another biological metric to track? Is this just the scheduled end of your workday?
Or is the sun shining into your mind to spark a great awakening light?
There is only one way to find out. Turn off the tracker, leave the highway behind, and go take a walk.